Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Eugene McAndry. I'm chairman of the Power Authority Audit Committee. I'd like to welcome other members of the committee, the chairman, Canal, trustee Kress, trustee McGibbon and Pacenti are excused from this meeting. I'd also like to welcome trustee Balboni, who is here and just stepped out for a minute, but I'd like to also welcome Gil and his staff who are also present. This committee meeting is scheduled pursuant to the Open Meetings Law, and I'd call the meeting to order. The first item is the adoption of the proposed agenda, which has been circulated, and if no amendments, I'd ask for a motion to approve that circulated agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carried. The agenda is adopted. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. That's also been circulated for review. Covers both NIPA and Canal matters. Ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
And any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the consent agenda is adopted. For the discussion agenda, I'd like to direct attention to Angela Gonzalez, who will update the committee. Angela.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Colmo, Judge McAndry, distinguished trustees, Gil, Joe, and Justin, Karen, and Christine. So we do have a few items to cover this morning. The first thing would be the status of the 2017 audit plan. If we go to your deck related to that, we have an update as of the publication of when you have gotten this deck. So at this point, we
An update to the update.
have an update to the update.
Okay.
Yes, we are at 48 out of the 52 deliverables, so we're at 92% completion of the plan. We have 4 more reports to go. That should be issued by the end of this week or beginning or early next week, so that will round off our year and complete our year.
Yay, all right, way to go, Angela.
So I'm very pleased to give you that news.
Well, if we've ever, in my 5 years, ever had that report. Very well done.
So this is, if you look at the chart, the breakdown of what the opinions were. So we have 7 good, 8 satisfactory, 13 improvement needed, no unsatisfactories to date, and then unrated we have 20. And that's where we are for the status. But the next...
We probably talk about unrated because their consulting engagements aren't
consulting memos.
Prone?
Yes.
Okay. And so what's your take overall on that array? So out of the 23 you did rate, you're comfortable with what you've seen and your view of the landscape?
I'm comfortable with what we've seen. I guess a lot of the areas, themes that we've seen, mostly around policy procedures and just tightening up controls, design, some security control initiatives that need to be put in place. But that's generally the themes that we're seeing over all the audits that we've conducted throughout the year. But generally, the opinions is, where they're falling, we're comfortable with the way they've laid out for the year.
It's a quick math, so 13 out of your 23 are either satisfactory or good, so call that 60% and 40% are improvement needed, so that 60-40 split doesn't inherently give you any pause in terms of the types of improvements that are needed, nothing horribly significant or pervasive as you just referenced. You're comfortable with the overall system of controls and control environment?
We're comfortable with the control environment and management is and any recommendations that we are making, management's taking action to work on them. So, as those open recommendations get closed out, they're addressing the risk so that improves the control environment. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if you want to go into the next slide. Is related to these are our key accomplishments for 2017. In terms of people, process, technology, so we've continued to onboard new staff members and acclimate them to our department. We actually hired 7 people since January, and we have another interview coming next week. We've provided
So
training.
how many empty seats do you have, or what?
We still have 7 at this point.
7 of 20-something?
23,
Okay, so still about a third?
a third, yes. And
It seems as though I thought we had 7. You said we've hired 7, but we still have 7.
no, we've hired from January, but we lost. So we kind of
And that is
lost
0.
out.
So the churn?
Hmm?
There's still a churn?
Yep, but we are actively recruiting for those positions, and we are having phone screens and bringing candidates in. So our goal is to be fully staffed by Q3, July 1st, and the plan is based on those assumptions.
If I may clarify, there has been no exits since the interim leadership transition has been put in place, only additions.
Well, we've accomplished the full audit plan with only 2/3 of a roster?
And the
Just think of the
Deloitte
work.
too.
Just
We got
think
Deloitte
of,
with us
co-source
also, right?
assistance of
okay, so,
Deloitte.
all right, good, that's the clarity I'm just looking for.
Right.
Yep.
No, we did have Deloitte help us, but no, we also had some removals because of staff turnover as well.
Okay,
It's not the total full complement that we would normally have from the beginning of the year.
all
I
right, so,
guess I would just say that probably the context setting that would be helpful would be, what is the industry average for turnover in an audit function? It's a difficult role. It's also, there's a lot of competition for talent. And so I think as a board, it would be helpful for us to understand, is what we're seeing par for the course, above or below, which gets at, I think, your concerns.
and I think, my gut would tell me what we were seeing was above.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
No,
and
agreed.
unacceptable.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's your
Which
point,
is why
Joe,
we
that
made those
we
changes.
bottomed out, right? We bottomed out, and we're
Correct.
We're
now
going up.
trending back toward more of a norm, or what hopefully ideally would be an above average or closer to best in class circumstances, I assume is what we're aspiring to.
Well, I guess what I've seen in the industry, benchmarking for turnover is like 4 to 5% usually around for internal audit, because internal audit is always an area where someone comes in for 2 years, maybe they want to go into the business, but they don't leave the company. So that's that kind of turnover that we usually see. Right. Okay, so the remaining people section is we've given training throughout the year. We've developed an internal audit competency model from staff to manager. We'll be getting director in 2018, and they'll be able to use this model so they can figure out what do I need to get to the next level, and how do I include that in my individual development plan for career goals. We've launched the guest auditor program throughout the year. We had 4 auditors come and join us on 4 audits throughout the year. We've executed on 2 team building activities. We've actually done some community events. And then we co-chaired with risk management on the LPPC audit risk and roundtable. So in terms of process, we've had the full rollout of the audit methodology since January. So we have a defined, repeatable methodology process, and everyone's been using that methodology throughout the year. We've introduced a fraud questionnaire in Q3. Now we're doing this questionnaire on every audit, so we get a sense of where fraud may be, and that actually kind of tweaks our scope to make sure that we're addressing any fraud risk. And we've continued with the audit liaison program. We've matched up our team with EMC -1 or -2, so then they're embedded in each of the business units. We've executed over 15 different client support activities, for example, standing committees or a policy review or process mapping. Those are client support activities that we do. And then we've also executed on 9 different transformation activities, which is one is audit methodology, another one is the SharePoint rollout. Those are that type to mature the function a little more. And then technology, we've had a successful partnership with Deloitte over the year. They have executed all of our audits, given our staff when we needed it, training. They've been a very good partner. So get this to be successful, this plan for 2017. We've executed our model to build out the IT audit team. We've hired an experienced manager, 2 experienced team leads. We have 2 more positions that we're looking for at the senior level. That will be the full complement of the team. We're co-leading the GRC tool implementation with risk management to develop a risk framework, and that'll build out a risk universe, and then we can build a true audit universe from that. Right now, we're looking at bidders for proof of concept for the solution and for the implementation provider. And then we did a rollout of SharePoint beginning of year, so we're tracking open recommendations in an automated fashion and providing management reporting every month. And then lastly, we've actually piloted data analytics on one of our audits. We use some of the data scientists that IT has hired this year to come up with some real good analytics. It was on employee data as one of the audits that did it on, to get some good analysis out of that. So we're doing a lot more of that in 2018.
I did meet with the audit with Angela and the team, the audit team, maybe a couple of weeks ago, right? And I was very pleased with the, with enthusiasm,
Level of engagement.
morale of the team as we've been going through this transition. And it was a very candid meeting. We had lunch here in this room, and again, I was very pleased. And when I thought it was a good meeting. Justin, you were there too.
The people too, I was impressed. Yeah. You know, they could either come from Big Four accounting firms, or some came from PJM, other utilities. Really impressive backgrounds.
Great.
So it was great to see.
Oh, it's terrific. I applaud your leadership and your efforts to steer the ship. You and Joe navigate this through an important time, and kudos again on the results and the outcomes. That's terrific. And rebuilding the team and rebuilding the confidence and credibility. So very well done.
You're finding Canal's.
Actually, we find Canal very interesting. We've built a really good rapport with the management there. Every audit we do, we learn something new. So I think, as we continue to audit them over the next, this will be our second year going in 2018 to really learn their operation. We'll fine-tune our, audit universe and our plan, but they're very receptive to the things that we recommend. They really want to improve. So that's very refreshing that they want that. So we're willing to help them. And we'll keep going forward with that. Great. Okay, so the appendix is the status of the audit recommendations for NYPA and Canals. You have an older version. We've done an update since yesterday, actually. So now, 2015, we have 11 open. 2016, we have 35. 2017, NYPA is 34, and 2017 for Canals is 11. But we've been closing them since September. We've closed a number of issues, but we're definitely working very closely with management, getting action plans, really solidifying the action plans to close the 2015 and 16.
So this is one thing that I've been on top working with Angela and Joe and Justin, and we have, just to reassure you, for each open item, we have who's going to do it by when, and complete and close it out. So now it's just a matter of us really bird dogging to make sure that those people
Get her done. That's all I'll say. Get her done.
And we brought in EMC and had EMC take ownership of the open.
That's where the ownership needs to be. It's not Angela and Joe. It's the organization needs to own and clean this up.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
Good.
The next slide is just basically the breakdown of percentages of what's open and closed. So I don't need to really go into details on that. But so the next item for discussion is related to the 2018 NYPA internal audit plan. So if we turn to, slide 1, this is basically the executive summary of what our inputs are to create it. So it's reflective of NYPA's risk areas, business units that we want to cover, resources that available to be able to complete the plan, reflection of top enterprise risks, strategic initiatives, and then input from executive management and other risk units that we have engaged with. And all these process units inputs are basically what comes up with the plan. We present it to EMC review. They've given us their input, and now it's just being presented to you for approval. So if you go to slide 2, this is really the audit plan coverage for 2018. We have 50 projects allocated. based on audit assessments consulting. So we have 36, 8, and 6. And if you look comparatively from to 2017, you can see that these are the actuals, but comparatively to 2017, when we first went into the plan, we had 11, 25, and 9. So we've reduced consulting by, by 3 projects over 2017 to 18. But like I mentioned before, these 50 projects are based on having full staff by July 1st, basically. So, and then Deloitte or CoSource will be supplementing staff and then providing subject matter expertise as well as we need it until we get full complement.
Can I ask a question about that? Because I was just a little surprised given the historic track record, especially in the number of audits, because that's gone up a bit. And so you said that's based on an assumption that you'll have full staff. So,
right.
So do you have some sort of triage of those audits so that if you're not able to achieve full staff, you know essentially what would be your, I'm going to call them in the construction term, add alternate audits, like you're going to put them here? Because that's, you've added 16 since 2017 actual.
Well, we have our B list, right? Our B list is always we can refer to and take a real good look at them and say we can add these on. The plan is flexible enough where we can swap where we need to.
Okay.
But we've also taken a hard look at the number of hours that we're doing per project. I mean, I remember last year the hours came out to about 510 hours a project. I think with more efficiency this year and now having a real true methodology, we've the average has come out to about 430 hours that we're ballparking. So with less time, more efficiency, we should be able to execute more audits. But as business needs change, initiatives change within NIPA, that also affects the plan as well. So we do have that flexibility.
Okay.
Angela, do you have in your process, just an example, a track of what areas when's the last time an area has been looked at by, for example, let's say HR.
The frequency schedule, right?
When was the last time HR was examined by an internal audit or legal or pick any department?
No, our plan, the whole full plan has all that information in it that we take a look. We've actually looked back to 2014 to see when was the last time some of these areas hadn't been audited. Some of them have never been audited, but we do go back to make sure.
So you track that?
We're tracking that, absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question from a frequency schedule
Right.
standpoint. So, looking at this over the last 3 years, just focusing on the audits, you've got 5187 audits over the last 3 years. So, is that 100% coverage of all auditable areas? Some areas, I assume, get audited annually. Some get audited every 2 years. Some get audited every 3 years. Or have you not touched all auditable areas over the last 3 years?
I wouldn't say we haven't touched, especially on the IT side, we haven't. So I know we've done a big focus on IT, but there are definitely some, IT audits we haven't touched yet, but will. So I don't think we'd like to get to a cycle, but that's, I think, when we get the GRC tool and we have an audit system and a true, real, defined audit universe, then we'll be able to be risk-based audit cycle.
Well, tying Ann's and Judge's questions together and picking up on Deloitte or outsourcing all the rest, I'd be interested to know when we're back together next month, if you could give us an update on that as to, my words, at least old school world, the frequency schedule in terms of how many auditable areas you have, who hasn't been audited, what hasn't been audited, IT, et cetera, to ensure that we're collectively comfortable that we've got appropriate coverage by the end of 18 or over the course of 18. So the questions that have been asked here, if it's not internal resources, if we can't staff up faster, that we're utilizing outsourced support. Can we have more of a discussion about that?
Sure.
Okay. Make sure we're starting top down. I mean, I agree. A 50% increase or more than 50% increase is probably a 70% increase in the number of audits year over year is notable. But I want to make sure that it shouldn't be even more, or we don't need to have even more, so we don't get surprised by, we haven't looked at that in 4 years, so
Yep.
we shouldn't be surprised that we had an issue because no one's been paying attention, kind of thing, so.
But, I just want to give you credit, and I know Trustee
Yeah,
Balboni's
not
here.
critical, just.
No,
We're
but
doing our
yeah.
year, not,
when you look at where your audit areas are, you can really see an uptick in cybersecurity. So, referencing your previous comment that was an area that maybe we needed to do a little deeper dive into, I think, that's sort of what we're talking about, that there are some things that really, when you sort of lay this over with our risk management discussions, where if we need to somehow sort of set something to the side, we would want to know that it's something that isn't a hot pressing issue for us.
But we do have 8 cybersecurity related projects in the plan,
yes.
so we
No,
are
that's what I'm
covering that
referencing.
risk.
You can see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
but my concern is that for any organization, everybody needs to get scrubbed over some reasonable period of time. So internal changes, leadership changes, organizational transition, hiring issues, whatever. Eventually, you can't use that as an excuse, not you. We can't use that as an excuse for why we haven't scrubbed the entire organization over, what I'll say is typically a 3-year period of time. And so I'm just looking to get a better handle on all of that.
No, we can provide that information, because we have
Right.
that
Joe,
information.
Justin, you
Yep.
with us?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, so if we go to the next slide, this is basically the breakdown by the risk categories, so the allocation of the plan by risk. So we have financials 18%, operations 52%, strategic is 16%, and legal and regulatory is 14%. And those percentages don't really deviate too much from 2017. They're really about the same. And the reason why we have increased operational percentage is because of the initiatives that are going on through NIPA related to within utility operations and business services and then technology. So that's why we have more skewed towards the operation side. But actually I did some benchmarking here, and organizations that don't have to have SOX regulations tend to do more operational financial. So we're kind of in the ballpark. The Appendix A is where the plan is, Appendix B is where our B list is, and then Appendix C is where the proposed Q1 projects. Don't know if you want to go to that now or wait to the end. It's up to you. I can just go to the next slide. We'll do it at the end. Okay. All right, so the next slide is related to our audit plan resources, where the 50 projects came out from the available internal audit hours. So between business and technology, it's 12,600 and 4,500. Third party is 6 and 38, and in total 13,200, 81,300, which comes out to 21,500. But that's also including those numbers are including the full complement of having a whole staff by July 1st. I just wanted to also make a note here. If you look at the available hours and you add them up, it says 17,100. But in the last appendix, where is the breakdown of what the hours are, it said 17,468. And there's reasons for that. It's because we've allocated 300 hours to the Canals plan, because we want to start building that internal expertise right now. All those audits are outsourced, co-sourced. So we are going to have some staff start working on some of these audits to build that expertise, because our staff today really doesn't have, on the business side. On the technology side, some of our auditors have helped on some of them. But that's the goal. We're going to be allocating some staff to Canals. So just the charts here are basically explaining the breakdown of business, technology, and integrated. We have a little bit more integrated audits this year as opposed to last year. And that's the reason being that we have audits for post-implementations for some of the systems that have gone live, like Ariba, Maximo, some pre-implementations that are coming in 2018, bid to bill, energy commodity risk. And then we have more of the technology, since we have technology staff now, to be able to help look at some of the business processes, the application controls that support the business processes, to get a real holistic view of how an operation works. So that's where you'll see the increase in integrated. Okay. So the next slide is related to our alignment. So 88% of our plan has been aligned to either strategic initiative or a top enterprise risk or both. As I mentioned before, we have the bulk of our projects, a lot of our projects here are on cyber for customer energy choices, and then for regulatory. That's where you see the higher numbers in those areas for the top enterprise risks. And then for strategic initiatives, we have asset management, customer solutions, and process excellence. Those are the three areas that we have some more projects opposed to others. So, and this really aligns with where NIPA is going in terms of being customer focused, and then in terms of the digital utility. We want to really map to that. So that was the goal here. And so if we go to the next slide, is basically this is some of the changes that that are occurring within 2018's plan. So like I mentioned before, we hired 3 experienced technology people, 2 more seniors will be hired, 1 will be also working on canals. And then we are supporting the digitization initiative where we have projects such as Agile, ISOC. We're looking at SAP Concur within travel and expenses. We're looking at success factors. We're going to be looking at SAP life extension modernization planning. That's the rehaul of SAP to make it more digitized. So those projects will be supporting digitization. So the next slide is basically related to our departmental initiative for 2018. Even though I did mention we have a full repeatable audit methodology, we want to improve. So one of the initiatives that's happening in the industry is, for years, IT's been using Agile project methodology. It's being applied to internal audit now. So I know actually Deloitte's one of the pioneers in the industry working on this to apply Agile project methodology to internal audit. So we're going to introduce those concepts in January at our training, and then we're going to develop the processes to be able to pilot at least either one project or a phase of a project using Agile methods, such as iterative meetings where we get to meet with the client during field work for a 2 period, so they understand what our testing is, why do we need this documentation, what our scope is. A lot of times we get questions from our clients saying, I didn't understand your scope, I really didn't know what your scope was. Maybe we're not giving them the right information, or they're not asking the questions. This, I think, will help to engage clients, and then also to reduce cycle time, over time. I mean, our audits range between 10 to 11 weeks. I'd like to get it down to 8 to 9 weeks. Mm-hmm. So this is one of the newer things we want to introduce into the department. And then in terms of metrics performance, right now we're really tracking just audit percentage completion and then open recommendations, but there's a lot of other metrics that we could be reporting on. Say, for example, we start tracking draft audit, when the draft audit is ready to when it get issued. We want to know what the bottlenecks are going on there. Maybe we can fix that and help it, and speed up that process. And then GRC tool I mentioned before, we're partnering with risk to implement this GRC tool. This is going to probably throughout the life of 2018. This is going to take to be able to do this, because we have to create this risk universe. All the processes and risk control processes related to that, and then create the audit universe from that. And the last 2 things is data analytics. We have a strategy developed. Right now we have a team that's I've assigned that will be rolling that strategy out. We are working on milestones to be able to implement that throughout the year. And so there are really a couple of things we have to do in the beginning to get this rolling, is really define what our mission is, what our objectives are, do a staff assessment to see who has the aptitude for analytics, and then process changes towards that. We want to do more analytics on every single audit. And now that IT has some data scientists we can work with, we have new tools, we can leverage that. That's where we want to go to get really more compelling evidence and information when we do audits.
Any questions?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well done.
No, one thing I would say is I don't know if you're giving yourself enough credit in the projects considered but not included in the plan, because it was interesting for me to see how many of what initially looked like, let's say, potential cyber issues that aren't included in the plan, when you actually read the full detail, they're included in the cybersecurity roadmap. So I think we should feel some comfort in that it's not that they're not included, but that you've realized they're part of a larger whole.
Right, that's
Yeah.
true, that's true. That roadmap is so massive that there's so many components that we do want to be able to cover as many as we can, right?
Thank you, Angela.
Okay.
Can I have a motion to approve the 2018 internal audit?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? If
Yeah,
not,
all I would ask is that, we approve this, I'm in full support, but with the benefit of, next meeting, some follow-up discussion to make sure we have a better handle on other parts and pieces that haven't been touched or
Sure.
what needs to be done, so.
Understood.
Okay?
Good.
But otherwise,
Favor, aye.
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 Carried.
Yep, well done, Angela, thank you. Joe?
Approve the 2018 Canal Corporation internal audit program motion.
For the budget?
Audit program,
The
Audit
plan.
audit plan.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anything that you alluded to that, Angela, anything that, you want to make sure that we're aware of there?
For the plan,
The
canals
canals?
plan?
I mean, you don't need to walk through it, but you referenced it throughout your discussion, you're comfortable with?
The only thing I'd like to mention is there are some audits that are on the plan that we probably won't do again because they'll be absorbed into NIPA processes.
Okay,
So there's only 27% of the plan.
aggressively
Yeah,
integrating?
Exactly. Once, as integration matures over time, we won't be doing those types of audits, and then we'll be adding different ones. So then the plan will, change as business needs change.
So the fact that the number of audits is decreasing from 17 to 18, that's misleading given what's otherwise being integrated with the entire.
The decrease is really related to, in 17, we did a lot of technology audits. So we have more business audits in the plan for 2018 as opposed to 2017. And we actually goes back to 16 from during the integration, we were very involved in terms of, looking at the IT side of the integration. And we did a number of 2017 IT audits. So in 18, we're not doing as many, but the cycle will come back, and in 19 we'll add more IT.
Okay.
But then again, also, NIPA IT covers Canal's IT, except for their own applications that they use. So we are, in a way, wherever we can incorporate Canal scope in our NIPA audits, we do. So we are getting coverage, even though it's not.
Even though we have
particularly-
separate entities, we're
Right.
comfortable with the integrated audit approach in terms of we've got appropriate alignment and all the rest of that.
Where there's shared services, right, where NIPA's
Yes.
providing the shared
Right.
services umbrella, we
Right.
can audit
Okay.
it there. Yeah.
All right, great.
We need a motion for a budget too.
Yes, yes, yes. That's the last piece, is the budget.
It's been moved and seconded for the budget approval.
Second, sure.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, that carries as well.
And again, I just ask that we tie that all back up, next meeting, one more time, so,
No
okay.
problem.
Next meeting, March 20, 2018.
Pending a brief little update somewhere along the way when we're back together in January, okay?
Yep.
All right, great.
Uh,
So moved to adjourn. Is that what you're going to ask? Okay.
All in
Thank you.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, Angela. Thanks,
Thank you
Joe.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.